Hello, everyone. I'm just wanting to make you a video. Hopefully, it'll be short. I'm going to be in the book of Mark. As I've said in a previous video, it's one of my favorite books of the Bible. And I'm going to be in Mark 14, start at the 3rd verse. And it says, "And being in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, and as he said it made, they're talking about Jesus, is the he. And being in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he said it made, there came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment of spikenard, very precious. And she brake the box and poured it on his head. And there were some that had indignation within themselves and said, Why was this waste of the ointment made? For it might have been sold for more than 300 pence and have been given to the poor. And they murmured against her. And Jesus said, Let her alone. Why trouble ye her? She hath wrought a good work on me. For you have the poor with you always, and whensoever you will, you may do them good. But me ye have not always. She hath done what she could. She is come aforehand to anoint my body to the burying. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached throughout the whole world, this also that she has done shall be spoken for a memorial for her." So I'm going to read verse 3 again. And it said, "And being in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he said at meat, there came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment of spikenard, very precious, and she brake the box and poured it on his head." I think that this is talking about commitment. She had an alabaster box of ointment. You know, if she brake the box. If she opened it, she could have closed it, but breaking it, she meant to use it all. I think this is a story, myself, I think it's a story of commitment. When she broke that box, she meant to use every bit of it. And I think that what he's telling us is that to do what we know to do, and don't just, your thoughts, but put it into action. It's a story of commitment. And I was in the hospital on July the 10th, 2012. They were having a revival down the road, not too far from me, at Mountain View Holiness Church. And then that day I was going to go there, and then that night I was going to go to another revival somewhere else. That morning I felt good. I walked 35 minutes, and I ate a pretty good breakfast, and I went to Mountain View. And it was a revival. I wasn't holding a revival. Someone else was, Brother Junior Stevens, I believe. And so I felt okay. And like I say, I had intentions of going somewhere else that night. So we was at church. They had the ceiling fans going. It was at altar call. I got down and prayed for somebody. I could get down then on my knees, and I was praying for someone, and I got up. It's near the end of the altar call, and I was talking to a brother. He was sitting there with his grandchild. I said, "Is that your grandchild?" "Yeah." I said, "Aren't they precious?" or something like that. And I got to noticing that my arms were hurting, both of them. And I looked up at the ceiling fans, and I thought, those ceiling fans are killing me. And then I realized that it wasn't my sinuses that was bothering me like they are today, but it was my arms. It felt like you had a blood pressure cuff on both arms, pumping them up as much as you can. And I just couldn't stand it anymore. So the man over the service was saying, "Did anybody else want to say anything?" He said that a few times, and I knew that if I didn't move, he'd probably say it again, and that might be another. We might be there a little bit longer, and I just felt like I couldn't stand it. So I interrupted, and I said, "Would y'all mind praying for me?" So they got around me and prayed for me. I felt better. But I told them, I said, "I'm going to go home." I went to the restroom. Brother Junior Stevens, I think, followed me in there and wanted to know if I was going to be all right. And I said, "Well, I have sprung my ankle before, and it looked like that. Sometimes you can walk it off, and then sometimes it's so bad that you can't. You have to go lie down. I thought, well, maybe I can just go lie down at home and it'll be better. But as I started on my way home in the car, I knew that it wasn't. So when I got out to the highway to 231, I went by my brother William's carpet store, and I got him to take me to the hospital. And I was in CCU 4 days. I've told this on another video, and I was in the hospital 7 days, and they said that I cheated death. But what I was going to tell you about this morning, I've already told you a little bit about that. While I was in the hospital, this man came, 2 men came, and they were from another church. They had heard about me through my nephew, I think, and where he attended church. And they came and they said, "We want to pray with you." And then I said, "That'll be fine." I had 2 choices. I could say, "You can or you can't." So I thought, well, I need help, and so I just said, okay. So he produced a little bottle of oil. And he said, when we pray, if we feel like anointing you with this oil, would you object? And I said, no. And so they prayed, and he did open the oil, and he did put some on my head. And whenever he took the top off of that bottle of oil, I immediately could smell that smell. Never smelt it before. And whenever they got through praying and the dust had settled and they was about to leave, I said, "Hey," I said, "what was in that bottle of oil?" He said, "Oh, that was spikenard." He said, "We took a bottle of oil and a bottle of spikenard, and we took 1 drop and put it in that bottle of oil, and it fragranced it throughout the little CCU room I was in, and probably on down the way." And so I think he's talking about commitment. If you open the box, you can close it. But if you break it, that means you're going to use everything you got. And some folks have got 1 foot in and one foot out, and they never got their whole self into anything. They're not committed. They're just flipping pennies in the wishing well. And I think it's a story about being committed. You have to be committed. Let me back up. Whenever I preached this to our church and I told them about breaking the box, one time right after that, I was up preaching and I heard a brother and he said, "Break the box, Brother Dale, break the box." When I go to church, or even a lot of times in these videos, I'm not holding nothing back. I'm not saving it for another video. I'm not saving it for another sermon. And I think you got to be committed in whatever you do. You need to have a certain level of commitment. Certainly in the ways of God, He accepts nothing but 100%. I think it's the same way in your marriage. It takes 100%. Some people say marriage is 50-50, but I say it's 100-100. And so Melinda, my wife and I, Melinda, we've been married 52 years. And we started out real meager. And so when we got off of we didn't have a big honeymoon. I had to go back to work Monday morning, I think. Got married on Friday. We had the weekend. And when we got through, we came back home where we were going to stay. And this is just a what if. What if when we got out of the car and I got my little bag, started up to the car, and I looked around and noticed that she didn't have anything. And I said, "Melinda, here's my bag. Where is your bag?" And she says, "Well, I'm just going to see how this thing turns out." That's not commitment. And some people with their church, they're not committed. You ought to be a fan of your church. I am a Meridianville Holiness Church fan. I just have to tell you I am. And the best church I've ever been a part of in 43 years. It's really been good. So I'm a fan of Meridianville. You need to be a fan of your family. We need to be committed. I want to be around other committed people that puts their whole heart into it. If you're casual, you'll be a casualty. You could be a casualty. Uh, good is the great. Good is the enemy of great, um, and greatness never goes on sale. It's never in the bargain basement. It costs the full price every time. If you're playing the piano, I'm hoping that you've practiced. It's going to sound better. And if you're dealing with the word, I hope that you're doing like I mentioned on another video, and that you're studying. He says, um, study to show you thyself approved unto God. So I know that if I played the piano, you'd want to know that you'd want to, or guitar, or whatever, you'd want to know that I put my time in it and studied that craft. And it's the same with anything else. But I love you. I've tried to dedicate my whole life to God and His people, and I'm glad of it. I just want to be a servant. That's all I've ever wanted to be, is a servant. He said that Jesus didn't come to be ministered to, but to minister, something like this, and give His life a ransom for many. There's not a traffic jam on the road to being a servant, and I want to be a servant. And can I serve you? In another video, can I serve you better, something that you need? My prayer to God is that we can all make it. Until next time.